Octopuses are weird. They can unscrew jars, solve puzzles, open locks, and escape sealed tanks. Not out of panic, but out of curiosity. They've been seen walking on two arms like land creatures, collecting shells and rocks for shelter, even stealing chimeras from divers. They can copy other animals, flatten themselves like the flounder, spread their arms like a lionfish, or slither like a sea snake to scurry off predators. Well, a few days ago, I just saw this clip of an octopus carrying coconut shells across the ocean floor. At first, it looks almost comical, but what it's doing is far from random. This octopus is preparing for something that hasn't happened yet. When danger comes, it fits itself inside the shells, closing them together like a portable shelter. Toshantus, that single act is extraordinary. It shows foresight, the ability to imagine the future and plan for it. Now, some scientists debate whether this counts as true tool use, a behavior once thought to exist only in humans, apes, and a few birds, or just really clever shelter-seeking behavior. But here's what's undeniable. This creature is planning ahead. It's doing something uncomfortable now for Abenefit until later. That's foresight. That's a kind of intelligence we thought required. Well, US. And that's where the mystery begins, because this animal isn't a mammal or a bird. It's a mollusk, a relative of clams and snails. Soft-bodied, solitary, short-lived, yet somehow capable of complex, adaptable intelligence. This small act, an octopus carrying pieces of the ocean to build its own shelter, forces us to question everything we thought we knew about evolution and what it truly means to be intelligent. And this is just the beginning of how word octopuses get. They've been filmed bouncing pill bottles like toys, jetting water at lights to turn them off forefin, unscrewing jars from the inside, and escaping from tanks to hunt in neighboring aquariums before returning home by morning. One octopus in New Zealand became so notorious for breaking out to eat sharks that the aquarium had to install motion sensors. But here's a thing that should absolutely blow your mind. Intelligence evolved twice on Earth. Once on our branch of the tree of life, and once completely independently in cephalopods and the octopus. The octopus is the strangest proof of that split. Because if you've ever heard the phrase intelligence requires society, you'd expect smart animals to be social. Dolphins, elephants, crows, primates, they all live in complex groups. But octopuses, they're loners, solitary hunters who spend most of their lives avoiding each other except to mate. So how did a creature with no friends, no family structures, and arms that can literally think for themselves become one of the most intelligent timber on the planet? To understand just how bizarre octopus really are, we need to examine their nervous system. And I mean really examine it, because what we find there challenges every assumption we have about how intelligence is supposed to work. Humans and other vertebrates possess centralized nervous systems. That brain serves as the primary processing center, with the spinal cord distributing comms to the peripheral nervous system. It's a hierarchical structure, one central authority coordinating all movement, sensation, and response. The octopus nervous system follows an entirely different blueprint. An octopus possesses hundreds of millions of neurons, a number comparable to a dog, but the distribution of those neurons is unlike anything in the vertebrate world. Roughly 2/3 of them exist outside the brain. They're distributed through valve 8 arms, organized into cluster-skulled ganglia. Each arm contains what can only be described as a localized addressing center capable of executing complex behaviors independently. This isn't simply the brain delegating tasks to the periphery. This is genuine autonomy. Researchers have demonstrated that a severed octopus arm, and yes, they regenerate, will continue to respond to stimuli, explore its surroundings, and recoil from unpleasant textures. The arm processes sensory information and executes motor responses without any input from the central brain. And when you consider the octopus's hunting strategy, this architecture makes profound sense. Octopuses squeeze into crevices, probe inside holes, reach beneath rocks, often into spaces where the eyes cannot observe. Those arms need to make rapid decisions about what constitutes prey, what poses danger, and what is merely substrate. Routing every sensory input throughout the central brain for processing would introduce delays that could mean the difference between catching food and becoming food. So the central brain appears to handle executive functions, strategy, navigation, memory, while theorems manage tactical operations. But the sophistication goes deeper than simple touch. Each arm is covered in suckers, and each sucker is densely packed with chemoreceptors. An octopus doesn't just feel objects. It tastes them simultaneously. Every surface contact provides both tactile and chemical information. Theorems are constantly sampling the chemical composition of their environment, creating a sensory map that has no equivalent in human experience, and their visual system presents its own fascinating story. Octopuses possess chimera-type eyes, lens, iris, retina, the same fundamental architecture as vertebrate eyes. This represents one of the most striking examples of convergent evolution. Two lineages separated by 600 million years, arriving at nearly identical solutions to the problem of image formation. But there's a critical difference in the implementation. Vertebrate eyes have a structural flaw. The optic nerve passes through terratina, creating a blind spot where no photoreceptors exist. This is a consequence of how our eyes develop during evolution, with the neural wire ending up on the wrong side of the light detecting cells. Octopus eyes avoided this error entirely. Their photoreceptors face toward the light source, and the neural wiring attaches behind the retina. The result is a seamless visual field with no blind spot. It's engineering that would make a human designer envious. They also possess the ability to detect polarized light, the directional oscillation of light waves, something entirely outside human perception. This capability allows them to detect transparent prey like jellyfish, perceive contrast in environments where color differences are minimal, and possibly even communicate draw polarized skin patterns invisible to most predators. Which brings us to perhaps the most perplexing aspect of octopus vision. The strong evidence suggests they are functionally colorblind. This seems impossible. How can an animal that modulates its body color with extraordinary precision lack color vision? The current scientific thinking points toward an elegant solution. Their skin might perceive color independently of their eyes. Research has identified light sensitive it pertains called opsins distribute outward octopus skin, the same photopigments that detect light in their retinas. This suggests the possibility that octopus skin can respond to light, possibly color directly without neural processing through the brain. They may not need to visually observe the substrate their camouflage indicates. Their skin might detect it directly and respond accordingly. This represents a fundamentally different model of perception. We construct a visual representation of our environment through our eyes and interpret it in our brain. Whales echolocate through water, building acoustic maps of their surrounding sound. Octopuses appear to perceive through distributed sensation, taste, touch, possibly even direct photoreception through skin. Intelligence, it turns out, isn't constrained to one sensory modality or one processing archetype. It emerges wherever complex problems require sophisticated sentience. The camouflage capabilities of Octopus shave captivated observers for centuries. But the mechanisms underlying this ability are far more sophisticated than most people realize, and critically, they operate through principles entirely different from other color-changing animals. Consider the chameleon. Often cited as the pinnacle of color-changing ability, chameleons modulate their appearance by adjusting spacing of crystal lattice within specialized skin cells, taffers. This structural rearrangement alters which wavelengths of light are reflected, changing the animal's perceived color. The process takes several seconds to complete, and research indicates chameleons employ color change primarily for social signaling and thermorelation, rather than camouflage. Octopuses operate through an entirely different system, one built on muscular control rather than structural load efficient. The octopus integumentarist contains three distinct types of chromatophore organs. Arranged in layers dotted the surface lie the chromatophore spur elastic sacs containing pigment granules red, yellow, brown, or black depending on the specific cell. Each chromatophore is surrounded by 15 to 25 radial muscles. When these muscles contract, the sac expands, displaying pigment. When they relax, elastic properties of the sac cause it to contract, hiding the color. Beneath the chromatophore layers sit the iridophores, cells containing plates of reflective retines that generate iridescent blues and greens through structural coloration. Deeper still are thaliocapers, which scatter light to produce white tones. But color alone doesn't create convincing camouflage. Texture matters equally. Underneath the chromatophore system lies a network of muscles called pili that can raise for extra